ask before I start is if everyone knows basically what I do. Who of you knows or has seen what I do? Just put your hands up. Okay, that's pretty much. Thank you. So I basically do all kinds of strength sports. So I have done some bodybuilding when I was younger. In the last 10 years or 12 years I have done mainly strongman. And I'm going to just explain a little bit what strongman is, because a lot of people know what weightlifting is and then they say I'm a weightlifter or a bodybuilder, but that's not exactly what it is. So strongman is basically a combination of all strength sports, and it started in 1977 as a TV show with the name The World's Strongest Man, and the idea was to bring different strength athletes like weightlifters and bodybuilders and powerlifters, to bring them all together and see who really is the strongest of them all. And to not give any of these different athletes an advantage over the others, they invented completely new disciplines. And that's how stupid things like pulling trucks and pulling fire engines and lifting logs and stuff like that came into being, because it was just an invention of new disciplines. And that game show, TV show was happening every year. So now it's still existing, and the World's Strongest Man now is the World Championships in a sport that developed around this show. And we have national competitions too, and when you win your nationals in the heavyweight category, you can call yourself the country's strongest man. So that's the idea. And when you get world champion, you're the world's strongest man. Okay, so that's that. But let's go back a little bit to where I started from, because a lot of the things that I do today can be explained when you know a little bit something about my childhood. So let's begin with where I was born. I was born in Iran as a child of Armenian parents, and in 1979. And in 1979, that was actually when the Islamic Revolution in Iran with the sport itself. The reason was, and to understand where it came from, I just have a few slides that I want to show you with some rescue animals that we had. So even when I was a very small child, I used to, when I saw animals in distress, I always used to try to help them. So, for instance, one story is when I found a dove that was had a bird with a broken leg. I was actually 7 years old back then, so 7 or 8 years old, and we were visiting my uncle of mine. So I didn't know the city, and I was just walking around the block by my own. I saw the bird. And I just picked it up and wanted to bring it to a doctor, and I was looking for a vet to bring it to. And what happened is I totally lost the way. So I found the vet, actually, brought the bird there, and then I didn't know how to get back home, so the police had to bring me back. That's one of the earlier things. And on this picture you see me with a hedgehog called Harold. Harold lived one full winter with us because his mother was died in a car accident, and I found him on the street and I took him home, and then we had him over winter. And here are some other rescue animals. This is Jacob. Jacob is a crow, and I found him as a little baby, and he had ants and bugs walking all over his body, so it was in a very, very bad physical situation. And we took him home and we had him for several months, any kind of remorse. So I started thinking, why is this illogical thing? And what I found out is that in the one case, for Jacob, I saw his problem, and I saw his problem, and because I saw him suffering, it was a natural impulse for me to help him. But with the chickens, I was just buying a product. So you just go to the shop, you buy something in a package, and you don't hear the screams, you don't see the blood, you don't see everything that's around, all the suffering, all the pain, all the fear that the animal has. You don't see any of that, and that's why you don't think about it. And I actually realized that probably 90% of society were in the same situation I was. So they were actually consuming something that they would normally probably not consume if they would have to see. My whole career as a strength athlete, I have been told and I have read about animal protein being much more efficient for muscle building and everything than plant protein, and that was what I was believing. So, so I thought, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to make this work. And for instance, I cut out meat, but I would still have dairy. So I would say, okay, I still have the dairy protein, and it's going to probably work. And the decision was quite easy for me for two reasons. The one reason was I never loved meat, so I was just using it as a protein source. So getting rid of it was pretty easy. And also at that point I was making my A degree on evening school, and I wanted to study psychology. So my main focus was on studying and school and working. So training was not that important. So I thought, okay, if I lose some strength, I don't care so much. So I went vegetarian, and after 6 months, everything improved. I was getting stronger, I was getting heavier, and I couldn't actually understand what was happening because I wasn't expecting anything like that. And I wasn't even training as ambitiously as I trained normally because, as I said, my focus was on studying. So it came as a surprise to me that everything was developing so well. And for that reason, I started thinking about starting to compete somewhere again. Okay, here, before I get to the next slide, here are some more animals, some more pictures. This is Jacob again. These are my ex-girlfriend's pugs. You're laughing. Actually, it's much more funny in German, because in German the word for pugs and the word for boobs is the same. So, that's much more funny. So, okay. So this is one of our cats that we have from the shelter at the moment, and this is me after taking a shower. Yeah. So let's get to the next step. So I was looking for a new challenge, and because one thing was I had all, an interesting factor about that is that when I wanted to go vegan, the first person I told that was my mother. And when I told my mother I was about to go vegan, she totally went nuts because she was accepting the fact that I was vegetarian for years, although she thought I'm just stupid, and she couldn't understand what I was doing. But when I said I want to go vegan, she thought like, now he's getting extreme, now he's getting radicalized, now he's going to turn into a terrorist. So she was really, really nervous and in a very bad mood. And then I said, okay, I'm going to tell my fiancée. She's now my wife, so. But at that moment, she also totally went crazy. One thing that she told me is, what is going to be the next step? Are you going to blow up a butcher's shop? Or what are you? So it was the same thing. It seemed so extreme that they were thinking, I'm in the process of radicalization. Although I was just trying to think logically, I was just using logic, nothing else. So I'm just telling you that because both of them are now vegan for more than 4 years. So with my mom, the whole thing went like that. I found out that my joint pain was getting better. Then I made some research and I found out that the problem or the basis for that was the over-acidizing and the inflammatory processes. Now, my mother, she suffers from rheumatoid arthritis. And that has a lot to do with inflammation, with overreacting immune system, and inflammation is nothing else than your immune system working. So I told her that I found out that my vegan nutrition helped me with inflammation, and I wanted her to just test it and see what happens to her problem, because she had to take very strong medicine, cytostatics and very toxic stuff she had to put into her body, and a lot of painkillers too. So I said, just try it for a few weeks and see what happens. She's vegan since then, because she didn't have to take any painkillers anymore. It was getting so much better. It's still in her body, so she has to take a very, very low dosage of the normal toxic stuff that she gets. But everything else she just cut away. And also she had a problem with diabetes, and that also reversed. So she doesn't take anything against diabetes anymore. She lost a lot of weight, and she's super happy, and now thinks veganism is the greatest thing. So, and with my wife, it was just an automatic thing to happen. I just let her, I just basically told her, just let me do what I want to do, and then see what happens, and we're all going to be fine. And she was just watching me doing this, and then she was watching me giving all those interviews on TV. And then, of course, we have information coming from my mouth, getting into her head. So I wasn't pushing her directly, but with all that information and with all the input, it was just an automatic thing. After 6 months or so, after 6 weeks, she was vegetarian, and then after 6 months, she was vegan. Okay, that's that. So acid wasn't a problem also. And now let's get to athletic performance. Well, I already told you, I won a lot of titles and set some world records, so athletic performance was going well too. Now I have a video of one of the world records, I think. Yeah, that's Toronto 2013. So I told you the facts, but we have a short video to actually see what I was doing, because I think the thing with the world records is a pretty crucial part of my work, and that's because since I went vegan, my mindset towards my training and my competing has changed completely. I was competing, before I went vegan, I was just competing to win competitions. That was what I was working for. And after making that decision to go vegan, I went into the whole thing with the idea to trying to do the right thing and to trying to promote the right thing. So when I then go to a competition, or when I would go into my training, I always feel like I'm doing this like for billions of animals. I'm doing this to, trying to Thank you. And I always feel strange when people applaud, because for me it's just a logical thing, right? For me it's just, the logic is, everyone gets tools. Every one of you has talents and has stuff that life gives you, and I'm just trying to make the best out of the tools that life gave me. And one of the tools is that I have a talent for the stuff that I do at competitions, so I'm just trying to use that to, make the world a little bit better. So I'm just telling you that to the actual message is that all the records that I set and all the competitions that I did in the last 5.5 years are actually PR stunts to get more media attention, to get more focus. And what it actually does is, for instance, in Toronto, when I did this rocket attempt, the biggest newspaper in Canada had an interview with me. The next day I was on their third page with a full page. It was about a vegetarian food festival where I did the world record thing. And the whole page was just about my record attempt. And I had an interview. And in that interview I get asked why. Why are you doing that? And why are you not eating any animal product? And then I can bring out the message, and then I can try to educate people and then try to, you know, just give people input so they can have their own thoughts on it. So that's why I do all of that. And let's now just watch the video to see what happened. So this is yolk walk, 555 kilos for 10 meters. And we need the sound.
Because the way we use our strength defines our fate. What traces will I leave on my path into the future? Do we really have to kill in order to live? My true strength lies in not seeing weakness as weakness. My strength needs no victims. My strength is my compassion.
Nothing to do with veganism or with anything.
Thank you very much.
Σηκώστε τα χεράκια. Ariadne εδώ μπροστά και εκεί έχουμε. So until the microphone arrives to the people who will ask the question, I was wondering if you've influenced your co-athletes, if any strongmen, other strongmen right now have transitioned into a vegan lifestyle, vegan diet, since you are doing something well, winning all those titles.
Yeah, well, you have to discriminate between two groups. The one group is a lot of the people that I compete against are guys who train for 10 or 20 years. So they are in my age group, and they have this history of bullshit that, you know, from the fitness industry, animal protein, you have to have animal protein, you have to have protein shakes, you have to have this. So they have all these brainwashing in their heads, and it's really, really hard to convince them. So even if they see how you compete, I can tell you one story to bring that to the point. I competed in the World Championships in China against the Eastern European guy. Eastern European guy didn't know who I was, but he heard from the other guys, that's the strange vegetarian vegan idiot. So he knew what I was doing, but he didn't know me personally. And the competition went for 10 days. So I noticed he was watching me for 3 days or so. Every time I was eating, he was sitting somewhere where he could watch me. And it was just like Sherlock Holmes, you know. He would just check what I was eating. And in China, it was really, really hard. I was eating just fucking rice all the time, because everything was with some kind of creepy meat, you know, like frogs and dog. Nah, I don't know. They didn't have any dog, but they had all kinds of creepy stuff. So I was having very hard time sticking to my diet there. And then also I didn't have any protein source with me. So the only thing that came close to something with protein was coconut milk from the hotel bar, from the minibar. And I was using tons of coconut milk, and it doesn't have a lot of protein. That's the bad thing. Okay, so the thing is, the guy watches me for 3 or 4 days, and then he approaches me, and he says, yeah, you're the vegetarian guy, right? I said, yeah, I'm vegan, and it's that and that. And then he's like, now I have been watching you for 3 days. And I said, okay, yeah, I noticed that. And he says, I see that you don't eat any meat. I say, yeah, that's correct. But I know you are lying. When you go up to the hotel room, you're having a steak, right? So that's basically the problem. It's so far away from what they can imagine, especially because they're ignorant about a lot of stuff. So they think when you're vegan, you only eat salad. If I would only eat salad, I wouldn't look like this. So I have to have protein-rich stuff. So there's a certain, there are certain rules that you have to make sure you're getting the nutrients and everything. But then you're fine. So I try to explain it to him. But well, the last time I saw him was before the World Championships, where I tore my tricep, and that was in Lithuania, and he is from Lithuania. So the first thing he says to me when I see him on the parking lot of the hotel is, are you still doing that stupid vegan thing? And I'm like, yeah, I'm still doing that. And then there comes a voice from the other side of the parking lot, wow, you're Patrik Baboumian! And it was a Lithuanian guy, I'm vegan too! And that totally ruined his whole worldview, that there are Lithuanian people who are vegan and know who I am. So that was funny. But yeah, that's the one group. And then the other group is younger athletes. I have a lot of younger athletes. A lot of them are, for instance, influencing a lot of people via YouTube. So like YouTube fitness guys. And I have some of them who, when I went vegan, and a lot of other people went vegan, they were saying, that doesn't work, and I don't know why they're doing that. And some of them are now actually in that movie that we're making, because they are now vegan activists and totally believe in it.
Thank you. So, next question.
Hello, Patrik. Huge fan here, man. I never thought I'd ask you a question, but I'd like to know what do you eat in a day for strength and stamina? And what's your favorite vegan food? I'm vegan here.
Okay. So basically, at the moment, I'm not having a lot of calories because I'm trying to lose weight. At the moment, I'm trying to get more overall fit. So I'm having at about 4,000 calories now.
Only?
I used to have 6,000 to 7,000. It's less. So, and also a lot of that is in liquid form, because I'm actually, when I was younger, I would eat a ton of stuff when I was like 15, 16 years old. But now I get full quite quick, especially when you have vegan stuff, you have always a lot of fiber. So when you eat stuff, you get full quite quick, and then I need extra calories. What I do is I have them in liquid form. So I have shakes and smoothies and soy chocolate milk, stuff like that. That's one thing. Then when I eat normal stuff, I try to always combine legumes with grains. So like rice with beans, rice with lentils, and stuff like that. And that's also pretty easy for me because I'm influenced by the Persian cuisine, because I'm born in Iran, so my mom has always cooked a lot of that stuff, and it's always a lot of legumes together with rice. So that's pretty much how I still eat, and some soy products.
Okay, one last question because we don't have much time.
And then we can still have a lot of questions on time.
Okay, maybe two last questions because they are close. There.
TV magazines, and everyone wanted to speak with that strange guy who's only eating vegetables and is the strongest guy in the country. So at that point, I had a little struggle with myself, because up to that point, everything I was doing, I was just doing for myself. So it was just a private decision. I was pretty vocal about it, so I always told everyone what I was doing and why I was doing it. But I was not thinking that I'm going to change the world or I'm going to change anyone else's life with what I was doing. But at that point, with all the media focus that I had, with all those blogs and everything that internationally happened, I got a lot of feedback from a lot of people. Well, a lot of different ways. What I like is to have it a little bit crispy, with flour or something. Have it crispy. Have it crossed, and then I eat it with rice and with sweet sour sauce and vegetables.
Thank you, man. Please keep it up.
Okay. So signing. Yeah. Let's go. Do you want me to dedicate it for you with your name?
Yes. Marius.
Marius.